Kid, this facility is like a ship. So how do I keep us on course without micromanaging every detail? Easy, with Granger. Granger's online tools help give me the visibility I need. I can shop, order, and manage all our activity. Oversee purchases, control costs, all while you guys get to order what you need when you need it. I run a tight ship, kid. I run it with Granger. Get it? Got it? Good. Learn more at Granger.com/online purchasing.
Sea Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. Jackson Craft along the way. Thank you so much for making us part of your day today. You are in for a real special treat for the next 2 hours. We have some heavy, heavy cats coming up. And my first guest is really a pioneer of percussion. He learned under the tutelage of some of the great masters of Afro-Cuban rhythms, and then he put on some accents of his own and turned it into a unique sound that helped catapult the Carlos Santana Blues Band into what we now know as Santana. He continues to do to give back in a prolific way as both a drummer and a human being, and it is an honor to have him on Power Talk 1210. Michael Carabello, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
What's up, Jake?
Oh man, that's a beautiful. Just so great to hear you, man. Thanks for taking the time. I wanted to start by asking you if you could just talk to the audience a little bit about growing up in the Mission District at that time and how music was made when you were growing up.
Well, probably a lot of people don't know this other than the people that are 50 and older right now, but there used to be a thing called vinyl. and a lot of people used to listen to those. My parents listened to 78s. So there was always music going on somewhere in our family. My grandmother was one of the first Puerto Rican families in San Francisco. So I was brought up around drums and hearing that kind of stuff and Santero stuff in my grandmother's garage, who had a chicken farm. So you can take it from there.
Wow.
But then, as my grandmother passed away and my grandfather passed away, my mom remarried and we moved to the Mission District, and it was a cultural surprise to me because there were so many different nationalities there as a kid of 10 years old, just growing up and going from that part, which is called the Hunters Point of San Francisco, Bayview District, into the Mission District. But a lot of Hispanics, a lot of Russian people, a lot of Polak people, a lot of Italians, just a melting pot of different people. And so there was always music around me, but I grew up playing baseball also. I know that this is like a shot from the back, but one of the guys I grew up playing baseball happened to be one of the singers in Malo. So I kind of knew him as a kid.
Who was that?
And Arcilio Garcia.
That's interesting. No, I want to just what I'm trying to get at is the idea of because of the in my mind, although we're going to talk about this later because I know you're collaborating with Neil Sean about electronic dance music with acoustic percussion, but how aware, even the poets, even the Latin poets, how aware were they of their roots and the rhythms and the roots of diaspora?
So I would love to go fishing with my dad on Saturdays and Sundays, and he would go like, "What's taking you so long at the bathroom?" I'd say, "No, nothing. No big deal. No big deal." And I didn't want to say anything. So I would keep going fishing with him, and my mother's going, "What's up with you fishing with your dad all the time?" I said, "Mom, there's these beatniks that play down there." Oh, that was a bad word back then, But I started hanging out there and checking out more and more conga drum playing, and then there was a fellow that I went to junior high school with that played bongos just immaculate. His name was Henry. I forgot his last name, but I remember them playing at lunchtime. The school let him play at lunchtime, and all of a sudden, man, all these girls were checking him out, and I'm going, "Wow, man, what's going on here?" This is like better than sports. And he was playing some great stuff. So at that attraction, I think it was the rhythm and the girl thing that kind of attracted me towards the drum.
Well, of course, I mean, it was, and it was very danceable music at that time. I really, this is so classic because it warmed my heart to know this. I asked you about your kind of mentors, but I'm going to jump the shark a little bit and ask you,
Okay.
can you tell me, I mean, I've interviewed the skipper Henry Franklin. He played in the band with this cat, but I want you to tell me a legendary story, maybe the first time you really connected musically and or personally with Willie Bobo.
Oh man, that's easy. That's easy.
Good.
I didn't know who Willie Bobo was until Bill Graham had passed the word on to Carlos before I had gotten back into the band, who they were to do Evil Ways. I mean, I was like, oh, okay, because, the band had another conga player before I got back into the band. I was the original, and then the band got, broken up, and then they got Marcus Malone, and they got David Brown on bass, and Doc Livingston on drums. And then something happened to Marcus Malone, which we won't talk about, and because I lived in the neighborhood, I kind of knew something happened that night, and I kind of went up to Carlos and Grace's house and went, oh, hi, how are you guys doing? Oh, we're good. Did you hear what happened? And, of course, I pretended like I didn't and got my gig back kind of thing.
Hey, you're smart.
But at the time, they were getting ready to do their album, again, and it hadn't come out yet or whatever. And then they said, well, we do the song Evil Ways. And I went, oh, okay, whatever. And then I heard the conga player on it, and I'm going, wait a minute. Why do I like this conga player so much? Happened to find out it was Victor Pantoja, who played with Chico Hamilton and everybody else on this planet. So Victor Pantoja was my heartbeat, my tone, my mentor, just about everything that I was, addicted to for the conga drum, even though it was Mondo Santa Maria, Armando Peraza, Francisco Agavea, Patato, Candido, all these cats. But Victor was my sweet tone of like, why do I want to play this thing? Because of the way he played.
I was gonna. Well, so I am still searching for this because the Jader the Jader stuff that I get off on is really from like the later '60s period. I think Armando was in the band at that point, and I'm trying to get the idea. Like, I think you were intoxicated by like the Benny Velarde Jader. Is that right? I mean the Francisco. I mean there was a switch in the rhythm. And again, I'm a non-musician, Michael, so I'm kind of relying on you to sort of take us from where Jader was. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. I mean, and then where Bobo, because Bobo was in that band too with Jader.
Bobo was in the band too. Armando Peraza was in it. Alberto Valdez was in it, which was Patato Valdez, and they called him Alberto Valdez. Johnny Ray. Grady Tate was on drums. I mean, that was all Soul Sauce, Wachiwara, Afro Blue, those songs, man. So I was listening to that growing up because Del Jader played in San Francisco a lot at the El Matador. We still got you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm there. I mean, what was, and you were able to come into the El Matador. How old were you at that point?
No, I wasn't able to go into the El Matador. Me and Carlos were able to go in later when we were old enough. But I just being able, because I hung out in North Beach,
right,
as a teenager, man, as like from high school, and I played with a band called Four of a Kind, which was Freddie Abruzzo, Rick Stevens was the singer, Jose Simon was the bass player, and these guys played at the Galaxy. And I also played with them in the Mission District. So Broadway Street was the place to go to hear music because the El Matador was there, and all the jazz cats played there. And I can't think of the other place, the Blackhawk, which was in the Tenderloin. So I mean, we weren't old enough to go in those places, but as I think as young teenagers, we were listening to K-Jazz that was in Oakland at the time. And I had heard Quartet Boston Bien. I had heard, you hear about Vince Guaraldi because Vince Guaraldi lived in San Francisco at the time. So, and Bolasete played with Vince Guaraldi.
We have
so you have all these great influences that are going on as a teenager, plus the Paul Butterfield Band. Come on.
Well, I mean, it's just the whole thing is it almost doesn't seem like it really took place. But thankfully, I get a chance to talk to people like Michael Carabello, and we have a game on this program called Name That Voice. So I want to play this for you, and then we'll come back and break it down. Okay.
Okay.
Well, like Santana, Carabello, we used to hang out. I mean, like I said, we grew up.
Oh, I know who that is. Stop already. Stop.
He used to. Hey, man, check this out. He had this record he got from Cuba. It was an import, probably smuggled in or something. He'd be listening to stuff that was, spiritual rhythms, and he would listen to the fundamentals and the rudiments of that stuff, and actually incorporate it in what they were doing in their next single, or the next song that they did, or in their music, just period. He's conscious of that, and he brought that to the table. So, yeah, there's an example of, being conscious and being aware of those fundamentals and where it all came from, and those things that really speak.
All right, you jumped out there. You want to tell me who that was?
It's Greg and Rico.
Bang, Carabello on fire. So that was from. I mean, just to give you some perspective on how hard I've been woodshedding. That was from 2 years ago.
Wow.
And we really grooved for a while. And I was talking to him about the same thing I just was asking you about the roots of the music. And you were the one that brought up the vinyl right away. But so what he was saying was that you were taking these intricate rhythms and you were fusing them into the Santana Band. I think that to me is really one of the biggest legacies that you have. You take the floor from there. I just want you to paint the picture of you and Rico, thrown on, being a couple of dusty vinyl heads and then working out those rhythms.
Well, me and Greg had did some other work together, and I've known Greg since I was like 15. He went to a different high school. He went to Jefferson High School, was way on the other side of San Francisco in the Daly City Park, and I went to Polytechnic, which was out in the Haight-Ashbury. I think what he's trying to say and what I'm trying to say is that we were so fresh into what was new on the radio, and it's like we're not listening. I mean, we are listening to the Temptations, and we are listening to Marvin Gaye, and we're listening to Smokey Robinson and the Miracles. And you got to remember, those three groups I just said had conga drums in them.
That's right.
So you want to go, okay, this stuff makes me dance, and it's really great. And like, okay, there's guys who take lessons and there's guys that do this, but I don't seem to understand that. So I can't take all the what you're telling me, all the stuff that I brought also, because there was Chipito and Michael Shreves. And it's not only us just sitting, me sitting down. Chipito brought a lot of stuff too that I said, hey, Chipito, what is this? And then he'd show you your, his way. And I go like, oh, great. I'm not going to be able to do that. But I was able to incorporate my signature into what he was showing me or what I had heard. And Michael Shreves, being a jazz drummer at the time, was able to come into the band and lock that and find out a way, how am I going to play the timbales and play the conga drums? So it was kind of like a freaky thing that we were all paying attention to find out what the groove was, but where the hole was, and then where the other hole was, where we didn't sound too busy, because Greg and Carlos and Neil at the time had to play over all that.
I love you. Just are
so
waxing.
there can't be a whole bunch of confetti on a parade, and then you can't see the parade. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. When you see a surfer out taking a wave, okay, what do you think he's going to do? He's going to try to stand up and stay with the wave, which means the rhythm. Okay? The minute you fall off the board, you're out of the rhythm.
That's right.
So you have to have a foundation of some sort. So, like I said, you can't give me all the credit for it. It was just a freaky thing that all of us had good ears and we were paying attention. It's like, you can't go over there because that spot is already being filled. And then David Brown, who was like one of the most simplest, unique bass players that you could ever ask for to make that sound complete. It's like, you have to be careful where you step in the song. And it's like everybody's going, oh, my God, that's great what you guys did. That's great. We were doing freaking cover songs.
Right.
and people thought they were ours. You know, so that's a huge compliment. You know,
this is
me and Carlos used to say, you know, if we're going to do a cover song, we better do it better than the artist we're doing it, that wrote it. Because if we don't, they're going to go, you guys copped out.
What if in the Carlos Santana Blues Band? What kind of cover songs were you doing?
Oh, you're gonna love this. Shim Shim Cherie.
Wow.
Okay. Oh God, what's another one? La Bamba.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say we were doing any like singing songs because Greg wasn't in the band yet.
Right.
Raleigh wasn't in the band. Raleigh came after the Santana Blues Band. But you know, we were just doing. I think we only had a vocabulary of songs of maybe 5, and we just stretched them. We had to open up for Charles Lloyd one time, and it was just Carlos, Danny Harrow, Gus Rodriguez, and myself that played at the Carousel at the Fillmore because they needed an opening act, and we got the call, and we went and we go, oh my God, we only know 4 songs or 5 songs, and we all looked at each other, scared as we could be, and got through it, you know, and this is with no bridges.
This is the original.
You know,
this is the original Fillmore on Geary.
Yeah.
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 All right. I want to go back because you're. I knew we would get. This is really getting intense, but you talked about your signature. For the record, all right, for everybody out there around the world, because everybody's got to find that hole. What was your signature in that early band with Chipito and Carlos and Michael? What was your signature sound or groove?
Well, the early band when finally I came back into the band, I had discovered Chipito at the beach. I had gotten the gig back because Marcus Malone was in trouble, and they had some gigs to do, so I stepped in for him at the time until he was going to get out of trouble. So I think we played, I want to say we played at San Mateo College or something. I think Michael Shreves was there even, which is so funny because he was in the audience. But we played, and Santana at that point had this conga player that was just outrageous, and it was a show because he'd throw his hands up in the air and he's playing like this great stuff, but everything was a solo.
Right.
All the way through.
Right.
It was exciting, though. Come on. I mean, it was exciting. Nobody, had seen conga drums, that kind of thing. So it's kind of more African back then. So when I got back in the band, I'm not a flamboyant player, man. So it's like I'm going, oh, my God, what am I going to do? I don't play like this guy. So I just played it simple and tried to hold on to the groove as much as I could with the drummer, who was Doc Livingston, and David Brown was the bass player. So we did like 2 gigs, and I was just like, oh, my God, man, this is like, we got to go somewhere else with this. So I found out that we were going to do some more gigs, and Marcus might come out for a couple, before he goes back to trial or whatever. And just so happens I go down to my hangout, these beaches in San Francisco. It wasn't Aquatic Park. It was Ocean Beach, Playland at the beach. And here I go sitting down there with another friend of mine, Rico Reyes, and this guy, Harold, and we're sitting down playing conga drums. And this guy comes up to me who's crippled on crutches and says, hey, man, could you let my friend play, man? He's really good. And I'm looking at the guy, and I'm going, you got to be crazy, man. No, we're still playing. So you would never let anybody use your drum until it was like you were tired. And go, okay, you can play your drum and stuff. So finally we got tired, and this kid sits down, and he starts playing. And I immediately dropped what was ever in my hand or spit out what was in my mouth and turned around and heard the same kind of stuff that I heard at my grandmother's house of conga drumming.
Wow.
And I went, oh, my God, who is this, man? And I go over and I go, man, who are you? What's your name? He couldn't speak a word of English. And the guy that asked me to let him play, Orlando, says, well, his name is Chipito. And I went, oh, my God, I got to take this guy home. And it's like, I'm not letting this guy out of my sight, man. So we played, and I asked him, where are you going after this? He said, oh, I got a gig tonight, at this place in the city on San Bruno Avenue. And I go, what's the name of the place? He says, The Nightlife. I go, oh, my God, my friend owns that place. So I go home with him. He changes. He goes to the gig. I'm with him. I will not let this guy out of my sight. I go with him to the gig, go with him to the sound check, go with him and watch his gig. I watch him the first 4 songs, he plays 4 different instruments. And I'm going, oh, my God. I went to the corner, got in a phone booth and called Greg and Carlos and said, hey, man, you guys got to come down here and see this guy, man. You got to see him. You got to see him. And he goes, oh, come on, you're bullshitting us, Carabello. I went, come on, you got to come down and see him. So they went, okay. So they come down, and they're sitting in a place of nightlife, and they watch Chipito play, man, and they go, wow. Nobody had ever seen timbales before.
Yeah, right.
Okay? I mean, it was just like, wow, what is that? So the fact that he couldn't speak English, Carlos and him struck up a conversation, in Spanish. And I understand, bits and parts because I'm Puerto Rican and Spanish, but brought up in San Francisco. I know what they're talking about. He came the next day, and he played trumpet, and he played timbales, and he played whatever. So bringing this piece to that because of my not being able to play like Marcus and not such a showmanship of that, but trying to just keep the groove together. I went, oh, this will work. He plays cowbell on this. He does this and that. So here you go, without even knowing it, out of a second of insecurity, I find this guy who turns out me, him, and Michael Shreves and David Brown become the greatest percussion section in rock and roll.
Do you feel like, looking back on it, that what did you have to give up? Did you have to let go of some control and ego in order to make it work? It seems to me when the band was cooking and burning the way it was,
Mm-hmm.
okay, when you look at some of these clips from Tanglewood or there's blazing stuff. I mean, everybody had you had to listen to each other, and I guess that leads into my question. In your mind, yes, Carlos Santana, it became he was the leader of the band, but Carabello, I want to know from Carabello the qualities of leadership that in even in 2015, cats that are into wanting to create new sonic new rhythms, new stuff. What is your advice as far as how to lead and how to make it work within a group?
I think one of the most important things, and as in life, you have to listen. And no matter what you think, you have to sit back and listen and look who you're listening to and pay attention to what you're listening to. And, not all of us were schooled in music. Some of us were, and I don't want to say the ones who were or the ones who were taking lessons or whatever, but some of us more or less are self-taught. And we were self-taught going along as we got to be the Santana band. Hang on a second. Again, I think most of it is listening, and you have to become a team at some point. It's not about being so arrogant, it's my band, or it's just this and this. You have to take such criticism that it's going to hurt you at some point, but you know what? You chose a bad career.
Can you tell?
You're going to get hit left and right with that. A good leader, getting back to what you're saying,
yeah,
a good leader knows how to be like an Indian chief. He lets everybody be the chief.
Can you give an example of having to? I think my generation, even younger generations, a little more brittle, a little bit more sensitive. I know my daughters are, and I know. Can you talk about when someone was critical of you and you really had to internalize it and actually realize that they were right?
Oh, watch this. Okay, we'll go back to the days in high school when I met Carlos, just before I met Carlos. Going down to Aquatic Park where my dad used to fish, I used to go down there on Sundays and get on the bus with a friend of mine's drummer who I borrowed, get on the 47 Patrol from the Mission District and go all the way there for, I don't know how much the bus was in, with my conga drum in the back of the bus, get off the bus, walk there and play conga drums. And I would have guys that I was going to high school with tell me that I didn't even know that they were down there playing, tell me, hey, man, why don't you let this guy play your drum, man, because you don't know what you're doing. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I had to think, because I played sports, you're absolutely right. I want to learn. So in order to learn, you have to lose your ego and go, okay, I have to pay attention to this because I'm going to learn something. And, if I hadn't got been so determined and so the part of, God, man, this guy's telling me I can't play, and really take that in a good way and turn it into something else, I don't think I would have played.
Mm-hmm.
So So you have to have an ear, and you have to have the patience and the endurance to take all the negativity that comes with it, and take what you can from somebody else, and learn, and learn.
Can you? I was fascinated. I got a couple of bios on Carabello from just before the show, and do you and Sean can you identify? Again, I'm not a musician. I'm just a listener. I really am fascinated, and we'll have to probably pick up a part 2 on this. But I'm really fascinated in this idea of combining electronic dance music and loops with acoustic percussion. What I hear when I hear even the stuff that you got off on, and Lord knows the stuff that you were playing early in your career before Santana, there was so much space in the music, so much space, and the silence within the music. That's music too. And now I hear, especially with a lot of electronic music, no space. There's nothing. It's just pulsing, and I mean, there's no way to dance to it. So, I mean, can you account for? I always look at it and I say the drum track or the drum machine, disco, and drugs. It's the 3 Ds. But could you pinpoint a time in music when you started to sort of say, "Wow, this is speeding up, man. There's no room for people to have their own individual voice or be their own chief."
I don't know. I think I must have been one of the last percussionists to get any kind of percussion or drum machine. And this came about. I'm going, that's not a real sound. They kind of got it a little close, but they don't really. When you were playing electronic music or tech music, as I call it, there's a patrolman, I should say. There's a cop on the corner at the intersection that's going to tell you what lane you can stay in or not. Mm-hmm. And you have the choice of going out of that lane and getting a ticket, or staying in the lane and keeping your mouth shut and going along with the groove. You can drop out of any of those grooves at any time and leave a space. There's just people that just need to like fill it up. They need to fill every little frickin' space up, I should say. But if you listen to most of the stuff that everybody dances to and stuff, they're dancing to boom, 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 boom. What did the cowbell do? Boom, 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 or ba 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 ba. So as long as you leave the space for the guitar and the keyboard to do stuff, it's going to be okay. And you can't be as scared of the electronic stuff because it's there. You just better make sure you have your time together, because you're going to stick out like a sore thumb.
Right. And I don't think you can replace the humanality of it too. I really don't. Before we wrap up part 1 here with Carabello, one of the questions I had given you was, I really think that in music today, you have a pay-to-play mentality. It's about a lot more about classical music and adherence to the creativity of a composer as opposed to individual creativity. And there's only 2 letters that differentiate between magic and music. And I wanted you to talk about the first time that you left your physical body playing music and that transcendent moment, because that's the magic of music.
Okay, well, you're not going to like this one. I've never done that, because if I was to lose time and lose myself, everybody would be out of time. So
but I mean, you know what I'm getting at.
I can lose myself in the groove and keep my eyes closed, but I still got to be the timekeeper also. I'm not one of those kind of players that just go all over the place. It's like, whoa, somebody's got to hold time here, you guys. You know what I mean? And if the bass player and the drummer and the percussionist are there, and you find a way to do a fill after the timbali player in the next bar or 2, you're doing your job. You're not filling every little space, and you're not competing with the rest of the percussion section. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I don't like that answer. I want you to maybe just talk about the spirituality of when you guys open your eyes after, I just want people to know that there is a transcendent quality to music. And that's all I want you to talk about, is that time when you could look and people are smiling because you all know the music was playing the band.
Oh, okay. So not when my eyes are closed.
That's right.
Okay. All right. I thought you were talking about when you can't do that.
Well, like, I mean, let me give you,
Yeah,
like, I mean, Billy Cobham with Mahavishnu, he was exhausted. It was like a 3-week tour. It was the second set of the final show, and he was tired, and he was falling asleep, and he literally saw himself on the side of the stage, but yet he was playing. I know that's out, but I mean, you know what I'm getting, you know. I mean, it's, I just want you to put it in your own words.
I think, I think most of the time is, you see Carlos playing with his eyes closed a lot. He's always like been there. He's able to hang on to that groove and stuff. I think some of us in the band, I close my eyes a lot. And I remember sometimes closing my eyes and then all of a sudden opening them and looking out at the crowd and seeing people like dancing and shaking their butts and being really smiley and happy face and everybody's grooving, and turn around and look at Greg, and Greg will look at me and wink.
Yeah.
Like, oh, man, see, we're happening, Or Carlos will look at me on stage and wink, or, I'll look around at Michael Sees and see, and we'll both look at each other with a little smirky little kid smile, That to me is the magic. That we know we're doing our job, and we're all in the same place at the same time, and it's magic. That's what our sound was about. It's like the thing about learning where the magic is. And learning where the magic is it's pretty surprising. It's pretty surprising when it all comes together. And
right.
You're all at the same speed, at the same speed limit. The windows are down, the top is back. And you could say, yeah, man, we're doing the right thing, Well, you see Keith do it all the time. Keith Richards does it all the time on stage, man. He'll be playing, and all of a sudden he's like in his own freaking world, man, and turn around and all of a sudden look at Charlie and smile. That's the magic.
Well, Mr. Carabello, we didn't get to a majority of the stuff I wanted to get to, and I knew that, but I just wanted to, I hope you enjoyed this little early first set, part one, down in the Mission, and
absolutely.
And I'd love to do part two with you in the near future, man. I'm just anybody that invented rhythms and was that connected to guys like Pantoja. You got guys like Paul Jackson who say Victor Pantoja was his father to teach him how to play Latin grooves. So I mean,
that's so great because he was. Man.
I know.
I mean, and the other thing. I don't know how many seconds you have here, but the other thing, Gabor Szabo was a huge influence on the Santana band. And Chico Hamilton's band was a huge influence on Michael Shreve. And you have to think every one of us was listening to different music back then. And when we all got together and we go, hey, check out this groove, somebody would go, oh, yeah, man, that sucks, man. Let's try something else. And it was just like, are you serious? Yeah, we're serious, man. We have to keep doing something different.
I want to talk
about... That different became our sound.
Gabor Szabo, he played with... Hal Gordon was a percussionist, and there were so many ridiculous... Yeah, I mean, listen, we have more to do, but I'm short on time. So, Michael, we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Much love to you, brother. Thank you, man.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right. We'll be right back on the Jake Feinberg Show.